Welcome to Twilight Fables, where fairy tales hide their truest faces beneath a veil of frost and bone. Tonight, we journey north, where winter never ends, and love itself may be a curse that feeds. The village lay in the shadow of an endless mountain, where the wind howled like wolves, and the snow came even in midsummer. The people there had grown thin and grey from hunger. Crops froze in their roots, and the river turned to glass before fish could be caught. In one of the smallest huts, a father sat with his daughter by the dying fire. Her name was Astrid, and though she was poor, her beauty was said to belong to the snow, pale, perfect, and too cold to touch. Their cupboard held only a crust of bread, and even that had grown hard as stone. Her father bowed his head. "I wish," he said bitterly, "that something, anything, would take pity on us." The words had barely left his mouth when a sound unlike any other filled the silence. The deep crunch of snow beneath massive paws. The door creaked open, though no wind blew it, and there in the threshold stood a white bear, taller than any man, its eyes golden as candlelight. Astrid's father fell to his knees. The bear's breath shimmered in the cold air. "If your daughter will come away with me," said the bear in a voice like distant thunder, "you shall never want for warmth or food again." The father could not speak. His tears froze on his face. He looked at Astrid, his daughter, his only joy, and found his throat full of shame. But Astrid did not flinch. She met the bear's gaze, and though her heart trembled, she said softly, "If it saves my family, I will go." The bear bowed his massive head, and the bargain was sealed. That night, Astrid climbed onto the bear's back. His fur was soft and warm, almost too warm, as if life pulsed beneath each hair. They rode northward through the forest, under a sky streaked with green aurora and stars like frozen fire. Hours passed, perhaps days. She could not tell. Time folded in the snow. At last, they reached a castle of ice, so vast it seemed carved from the bones of the world. Pillars shimmered blue, and the air sang faintly, as though the walls themselves were alive. "This is your home now," said the bear. His breath clouded the air in golden wisps. "All that you wish for will be given, if only you do as I ask." "And what must I do?" Astrid whispered. The bear lowered his head. "Never light a candle in the night, never seek my face." Astrid's days were strange, but filled with comfort. Golden bowls brimmed with honey and milk appeared when she hungered. Firelight burned though no wood was ever seen, and each night, as she lay in her silken bed, she felt the presence of another beside her, the weight of a man, the brush of breath near her ear. He never spoke, he never moved while she was awake, but his warmth surrounded her like sunlight, and her dreams were filled with him, a figure of light, faceless yet kind. Weeks passed. Her fear dulled into curiosity, then into longing. The bear was gone by day, wandering the mountains. By night, she waited for the unseen man, her heart aching with questions she could not ask. One evening, as the aurora shone brighter than ever, she whispered into the darkness, "Who are you?" A hand touched her cheek, tender, human. "The one who loves you," a voice murmured. "Sleep, Astrid." She should have been comforted, but something in that voice, its hunger, its heat, filled her with an unease she couldn't name. It was her mother's face that finally broke her resolve. One night, she dreamed of the village, her father and mother feasting before a roaring fire, clothed in furs finer than kings. But when her mother turned to her, the woman's eyes were gold. "You must see him, my daughter," the dream whispered. "How else will you know whom you love?" Astrid awoke trembling. Her hand found a small beeswax candle on the bedside table, one she had never seen before. The wick glowed faintly, as though it had been waiting for her. When the soft breathing beside her grew steady with sleep, she lit it. The light trembled across the room, revealing walls that glimmered not with frost, but with something alive beneath the surface, veins of light pulsing faintly, as though the ice itself had a heartbeat. And there he lay beside her, a man of extraordinary beauty, golden-haired, his skin pale and faintly luminous, as if the blood in his veins was not red, but light itself. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm that seemed to echo her own. Astrid reached out, her fingers brushed his shoulder. The skin was too warm, almost feverish. A drop of wax fell from her candle onto his heart. The man's eyes snapped open, golden, the same gold as the bear's. The room filled with a sound like distant thunder. He sat upright, clutching his chest, eyes full of sorrow and terror. "What have you done?" he whispered. "You've doomed us both." The light flared blindingly. Astrid stumbled back as cracks split the walls, the shining veins pulsing faster, angrier. Outside, the wind howled, the castle shuddered. Through the cracking ice, she saw shapes moving, vast, indistinct, as if the mountain itself had eyes. The man's form blurred, stretching, twisting. His golden hair scattered like flame. His skin darkened to white fur. Claws tore through his hands. The bear roared, a sound that shook her bones. "I told you never to look," it thundered, "for love cannot see without devouring." The castle collapsed. Astrid fell through snow and wind and silence. When she awoke, she lay alone on a frozen plain, the candle still clutched in her fist, its flame long dead. She rose to her knees, the cold gnawing at her bones, and whispered into the dark, "I will find you, even if it takes me east of the sun and west of the moon." When she awoke the next morning, her throat was raw, her sheets damp with sweat. A faint scent of crushed flowers clung to her skin, roses, violets, and something faintly sour beneath. She rolled over and found the bed empty. The bear was gone. Only the faint depression of his enormous form remained beside her, and in that hollow a small, white blossom had sprouted overnight. Its petals were translucent, gleaming like opal. She reached to touch it, and a pinprick of pain flared at her fingertip. Blood welled up, bright and alive against the white. When the drop fell onto the petals, the flower seemed to breathe. She stared, entranced, as it unfurled wider and released a puff of pale dust. Her head spun. She stumbled back and gasped, but the air itself seemed heavier now, charged with perfume. Something deep inside her chest pulsed in answer. Days passed, and the bear did not return, but each morning she woke to find new blossoms blooming in her bed. Some grew from the sheets, others from the wooden floorboards. They were beautiful, ghostly things that seemed to hum faintly in the quiet, until she realized the hum matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. She began to feel strange. When she brushed her hair, strands came away with roots still attached. Her fingertips itched when she touched sunlight. Sometimes, when she looked too long at the walls, she could swear they were pulsing, breathing with her. And always that scent, thick, floral, sweet enough to make her dizzy. One night, she dreamed of the bear again. He lay beside her in the darkness, his white fur gleaming like snow under moonlight. "You're changing," he whispered, his voice so deep it vibrated through her ribs. "What's happening to me?" she asked. "Why are you gone in the day?" His face twisted, the muzzle pulling back, not in anger, but in anguish. "Because you are not meant to see what I am." "You're cursed," she said softly. He lowered his great head, nuzzling her cheek. "No, my love, you are." She woke, gasping, with something soft pressed against her lips. It was a flower, grown from her pillow, its stem wound around her throat. When she ripped it free, a tear in her skin revealed not blood, but pale vines writhing beneath. The next morning she fled. She stumbled into the snow, barefoot, wearing only her nightgown. The forest seemed to close in around her, every branch heavy with frost and pale buds. When she tried to run, they snagged her hair, cut her wrists, tangled her legs. "Please," she whispered to the trees, "let me go." A whisper came back, many voices, one tone, like wind through hollow reeds. "You are ours." She reached her family's cottage by dusk. Her mother screamed when she saw her, because her daughter's eyes were no longer blue. They were milky and pale, with veins of green running through the whites. "What did he do to you?" her mother cried, clutching her face. "Tell me." The girl tried, but words came out like sighs, each exhale thick with petals that fell from her mouth. Her father built a fire and burned her nightgown. Beneath the ash, the vines writhed and retreated into her skin. For a time, she grew quiet again, normal, almost. But when she went to sleep that night, she felt something shift beneath her breastbone, something alive. It wasn't the steady beat of her heart anymore. It was fluttering. The next few weeks were a blur of fever and fragrance. She stopped eating. She didn't need to. The smell of flowers sustained her. When she looked into the mirror, she saw a strange glow beneath her skin, like light through thin leaves. Her mother wept and prayed. Her father sharpened knives and whispered of witches. And in her dreams, the bear came again. This time, he stood upright, a man's silhouette wrapped in fur, eyes luminous and tender. "You must return," he said, holding out a hand. "It is not safe among men." "Not safe," she rasped. "You did this to me." "I loved you too deeply," he said, his voice breaking. "And love, my kind of love, takes root. It feeds and grows and never dies." She reached for him, but his body dissolved into a cloud of petals that swirled around her and whispered, "Come home." When she woke, her parents' cottage was filled with vines, crawling through the cracks in the walls, the windows sealed with blooms that breathed in the dark. Her mother was gone by dawn. The air smelled like roses and decay. Her father's axe lay rusting in the snow outside. The girl walked into the woods again, her feet bare, her nightdress torn. Flowers grew in her footprints. After 3 days' travel, she reached the mountain where she had first met the bear. It was not as she remembered. The snow was gone. In its place, pale moss spread across the ground, pulsing faintly with veins of green light. She followed the trail to the cavern's mouth. The scent was overwhelming now, sweet enough to burn her throat. Inside, she found the bear waiting, but he was not as she remembered either. His fur had sloughed away in patches, revealing glistening vines beneath. His eyes were flowers, his breath perfumed. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "My bride," he said, "you've come home." She took a trembling step forward. "What am I becoming?" "Love," he said. "Pure, endless love. That's what we are, what we always were." She shook her head. "No, love doesn't eat away who we are." He smiled sadly. "Doesn't it?" He pressed his paw, half hand, half petal, against her chest. She screamed as the vines beneath her skin writhed and broke through. They reached toward him, tangled together, merging. Her breath came in sobs and gasps and whispers of scent. "Let it happen," he murmured. "Let us grow." She didn't remember much after that, only the sensation of roots twisting around her bones, of her heart splitting open to make room for something larger. And then silence. When she woke, the cavern was full of light. She stood beside the bear, but now they were bound by stems and tendrils, their bodies one vast organism blooming in the dark. Her skin shimmered with veins of green and gold. He smiled at her, no longer beast, no longer man, just a shape made of hunger and devotion. She smiled back and whispered, "I can feel you." He nodded. And I, you, forever. But outside the mountain, the world changed. Travellers spoke of a forest that glowed faintly at night, where the air smelled too sweet to breathe. They said that if you walked too deep, you'd hear a heartbeat in the earth. And sometimes, just sometimes, you'd see a woman's face beneath the petals. Her lips moved as though whispering a lover's name, but her eyes were white and still, like flowers frozen in bloom. The years blurred into centuries, or perhaps it was only months. The girl no longer knew. Time dissolved like sugar on her tongue. She and the bear pulsed together, their shared body buried beneath roots and petals and pale breathing soil. Her thoughts came and went like mist. Sometimes, when the light outside flickered through the vines, she would remember faces, her mother's, her father's, a home once small and safe, but the memories crumbled before she could hold them. The bear whispered to her sometimes. His voice came from everywhere, soft and honeyed. We're complete now. We've grown beyond flesh. She wanted to believe him, yet sometimes, when she looked down, she thought she could see her own ribs beneath the translucent skin, vines writhing through the cage of her chest like worms, and beneath them, something darker, something still human, throbbed faintly in protest. It beat for freedom. It beat for air. It beat for her. Seasons passed. The mountain changed. The forest below became a wasteland of white growth. Every tree choked by flowering vines. Every river perfumed with decay. The villagers who once feared the mountain now avoided it entirely, muttering prayers when its glow touched the horizon. But one, a woodcutter's daughter, named Irene, did not. Her mother had disappeared into the woods a year ago, drawn by a voice that promised warmth in the cold. Iron had found only flowers where her footprints ended, and so she came armed with her father's axe, her hair braided with thorns, her mouth covered with a cloth soaked in vinegar to dull the cloying scent. When she reached the mountain's base, she could feel it breathing. The ground trembled with a slow, rhythmic pulse. White vine coiled across the snow like veins, creeping upward toward her boots. She hacked at them with her axe, and the earth shuddered as if in pain. She whispered a prayer, not to gods, but to her mother, and climbed. The cave was no longer a cave. Its mouth yawned wide like a wound rimmed with petals. Light glowed within, soft, pulsing, alive. Irene stepped inside. The air was warm and thick, moist. The walls rippled faintly with veins of gold. Every sound was muffled, as though she stood inside a body rather than a mountain. And at the centre of it all was the tree. It was vast, spanning the cavern like the skeleton of a god. Its bark was translucent, its branches webbed with vines, and from its roots flowers bloomed, white, faintly luminous, exhaling perfume that made her dizzy. She would have turned back if not for the whisper, a woman's voice, faint, but familiar. Help me. Erin followed it, stumbling deeper until she reached the trunk. There, half merged with the bark, she saw her, a woman with long, pale hair and eyes like glass. Her lips were cracked but beautiful, her chest rising and falling with slow, deliberate breaths. At first, Irene thought she was dead, but then the woman's eyes flickered open. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I came for my mother," Erin said. "Have you seen her?" The woman's lips curved faintly. "We've seen everyone." Her voice was strange, layered, as though another spoke beneath her. Erin took a step back. "What are you?" The woman smiled sadly. "I was a bride once. He was a bear, and I was a girl, and love made monsters of us both." Before Irene could speak, the ground trembled. The vines around the chamber tightened, curling up the tree like veins constricting around a heart. The petals overhead shivered. From the shadows behind the woman, something immense stirred. It stepped forward, and Erin saw the bear, or what was left of him. He was vast, his body half fur, half blooming matter. Flowers spilled from the seams of his form. His eyes were dark pits, filled with pollen. "I told you," he said, his voice deep and soft as moss. "You mustn't wake her." The woman, his bride, screamed silently, her vines flaring outward like tendrils. "Don't listen to him." Erin raised her axe, but the air thickened. The bear's gaze held her fast. "She's part of me," he murmured. "I keep her safe. I keep everything safe. All those who come here become part of the garden. Would you destroy paradise, child?" The word child rolled through her mind like thunder. Her knees buckled, but she forced herself upright. "You killed them," she hissed. "You turned them into this." He tilted his head. "No, they came willingly. They wanted love. I gave it." The vines shuddered in pleasure at his words. The bride's voice cut through the air, sharper now. "No! He feeds on it, on the wanting. The longer we love him, the deeper he roots." The bear turned toward her. "You begged for me to stay." She glared at him, her eyes bright with sap and tears. "Because I didn't understand what you were. You weren't love. You were hunger, wearing its face." The ground cracked open beneath Irene's feet. Vines lashed out, snaring her wrists and ankles, dragging her toward the roots. She swung the axe, severing a few, but more coiled from the walls, pulsing with golden light. The bear stepped closer, lowering his head. "Don't fight it. You'll see. It's bliss. You'll never be alone again." He reached out, and the world tilted. For a heartbeat, she saw what he promised. Her mother's face in the vines, smiling, peaceful, her arms outstretched. The scent of flowers filled her lungs, sweet and suffocating. "Come," the bear said gently, "let love take you." But the bride screamed, so loudly the air shivered. Her hands, bound in bark, tore free with a sound like snapping bone. She seized the bear's fur, her fingers digging deep. "You won't have another," she hissed. The vines around them convulsed. Light flickered. The tree itself moaned. The bear roared, his body unravelling, fur shredding into petals, bones cracking into roots. "You can't destroy what we are." The bride's voice trembled with fury and sorrow. "No, but I can cut us apart." Irin understood then. She lifted the axe and, with all her strength, drove it into the base of the glowing tree. The sound that followed was not of wood, but of a living thing screaming. The cavern collapsed in light. The vines writhed violently, tearing free from the ground, slashing at her arms and face. Sap rained down like blood. The bear lunged, but the bride held him fast, her vines piercing his chest, binding them together. "Run!" she cried to Irin, "before it finds another route." Irin staggered toward the exit, the axe heavy in her hands. Behind her, the bride and the bear twisted together, two figures dissolving into a storm of flowers and light. The mountain shook, the air filled with perfume and ash. When Iron reached the open air, the cave collapsed. Weeks later, when the villagers dared to climb the mountain, they found the forest dead. No flowers, no vines, no light, just ash. But in the snow, at the mountain's base, a single white blossom grew, delicate and perfect. Iren stood over it, her fingers wrapped around the handle of her father's axe. She considered cutting it, but when she leaned close, she heard a faint heartbeat within the petals, a soft, steady rhythm, impossibly human. She left it there, buried in snow. Centuries passed. Travellers said the mountain never stayed dead for long. Every 100 years or so, when the air grew warm and the wind smelled faintly of honey, pale flowers would rise again from the ruins. They whispered that the garden slept beneath, waiting that somewhere deep in the earth, a bear and a woman still twined together, dreaming of love eternal. And if you pressed your ear to the ground, you could still hear it, the beating of a heart that would not die.